Ascension, I find often gets kind of short shrift because we don't really know what to do with it. I think most of us think about it as something that happened a couple thousand years ago and we don't really know what it means. So we just move on to something more intriguing like the birth of Jesus or the resurrection or something. But it says a lot about who we are and what we are called to be. And I want to unpack this for you a bit. First of all, try to get your head in the cosmology of the ancient world. So forget what you know about the universe. Imagine that you thought it was like this. Ready? Here we go. Okay, think of some stacks of pancakes or tortillas. Okay? And there's a tortilla or a pancake underneath us, and that's the lower world. And every now and then in that lower world, there are these big stone pillars that stick up. And on top of that rests our pancake, which is the earth we're living on. Remember, it's all flat. Okay? Now, above our world, there's a kind of dome. And when you look out at the horizon, all around you, you see that dome kind of curves down to the edge, and that's how it's supported, because that's how domes are built. Now, above that dome, called the heavens, is more water up above there. And every now and then, God opens the gates in that dome, and water comes out. We call that rain. But sometimes He closes the gates. This is how they were thinking. And above that water, above the dome, comes the realm of the divine. You get to the stars, and God is somehow beyond all that. Now that is the world they imagined, and the universe they imagined. So when they're writing about it, they write from what they know, just as we would write today from what we know. And probably in 500 years, they'll tell us we didn't get all kinds of things too. Okay. But of course, in that understanding, then Jesus goes up there because that's where God is. It's like God has a location. It doesn't really make sense with theology ultimately to say God has a location, but that's the way they felt at the time. Now, over the centuries, of course, we've changed the way we understand cosmology. And I remember it surprising me, even as a little kid back in the 60s, Nikita Khrushchev, I don't know if any of you remember that name. I'm just about at the edge of the age where we would have remembered this. I'm almost 58 right now. Okay. Well, Khrushchev had Soviet cosmonauts shooting up there, and he made the sarcastic remark about believers, Christians. He said, well, my cosmonauts didn't see Jesus when they went up there. And even as a little kid, I thought, well, duh, of course not. Because God doesn't have an address. You know, it's kind of stupid to think that God's in a location someplace in the physical universe. Like, you know, the third galaxy from the sun or something. It didn't make any sense. Even to me as a little child, I got that this famous person leading a huge nation said something really stupid. Sisters and brothers, God isn't like that. God isn't up there someplace in a particular spot. What happens in the Ascension is more like this. The Jesus who has the fullness of the Godhead with Him and the fullness of humanity in Him, remember, He's 100% divine and 100% human, not 50-50. It's alive in Him. Both are full and complete in Him. That Jesus has gone from this historical existence where we would have recognized Him as a man walking around with a particular color of hair and maybe a beard and eyes with a particular color and what His skin looked like. We don't have that anymore because He's not living in history as He was at that time. He's gone and carried His humanity into the divinity. That's an amazing thing. He's not just living in His humanity now. His humanity is alive in His divinity. They're together. The fullness of His glory, we call it in the Bible, is alive in Him and present in Him at the same time. And so He's not here. He's not being held by gravity like we are. Of course He's not like us right now. But yet He is. Isn't that fascinating? Christian theology is very daring because what we say is that the fullness of God and the fullness of humanity live in Him. That's where they intersect. But they're fully alive in Him. Most religions don't try this. Think about that. Wow. The humanity, obviously then, has the capacity to relate to God fully, because that's exactly what's happening in Jesus Christ. His human nature is fully present in His divinity. It's not overwhelmed by it. It's present there. Sisters and brothers, that tells you and me, it should tell you and me, that that is true of us. That our human nature can be fully alive and present in the divine, in a beautiful and perfected way. That's what the Ascension is about. It tells us how beautiful we are. There is no such thing as an ugly human being. I know we think about it because there are certain regularities to features and things that we think are beautiful, and everything else kind of falls away gradually. But we're wrong. There is no human life that's ugly. There's no human person that is ugly. Human life can live fully in the presence of the divine. Wow. What does that tell you about yourself? I hope it tells you that you're beautiful and that you're capable of this great life with God. Yes, we can screw it up. I screw it up. You probably do too. Most of you are probably better than me at it, but nevertheless, we have our problems. But the grace of God is there so that we pick ourselves up and try again and again and again, and 10,000 times if that's what it takes. Without grace, we wouldn't try anymore. But with grace, we keep trying to make that fullness of the divinity present to us as our fullness of humanity present to the divinity. We keep working at it. We are capable of it. So it's one of the great insights of the Franciscan medieval theologian Duns Scotus. Human nature is capable, by nature, in grace, of being fully present and alive in God. That's how you're made. Isn't that a great thing? Doesn't it make you smile? It makes me smile. To think that we're that wonderful. We don't act like we believe it. So often we sit there and hallelujah. It's a beautiful thing to be alive in God's presence and to be present to Him. Think of that relationship this week. That because of the Ascension, we see that the human nature of Christ is now taken alive into the fullness of divinity. And that's a pledge and a promise to you and me. Listen to it come up in the prayers during the Mass. You'll hear it. What a great thing. How beautiful it is to be a Christian. So, why don't you put that on your face? That's sweet. Thank you. I hope you live in it this beautiful week.